Thank you, Peter. I will now open the meeting and welcome all members present to the 2024 AGM of Cigre Australia. I'd like to remind members that this is being held face-to-face here in Brisbane, but it's also being webcast and that there are members online as well. I'm going to start with an acknowledgement of country, and I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara people, and we pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and I extend my respects to all Aboriginal people present and attending here today online. I'd also like to remind members of the need to comply with trade practices obligations and Cigre Australia's strong commitment to compliance with the Competition and Consumer Act, and that we should not discuss anything that affects electricity pricing or competition in the electricity market. I'd like to advise members online that they have the capacity to ask questions of the Chairman, the CEO, Company Secretary, or the office bearers giving presentations. As such, please only use the chat facility in Teams for the purpose of directing any questions to the speakers. It will not be possible to effectively monitor for questions if there is a general chat going on in that forum. Peter, so first of all, I'd like to ask if there are any apologies that have been received, and is the meeting court?
Thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Alex Bache, Phil Southwell, Stuart Bell, David Croft, Wayne Pepper, Janemi Ekanayake, Robert Evans, Liz Brand, and Andres Lauby. And the meeting is court.
Thank you, Peter. I'd also like to ask members if there are any other items of business they would like to be added to the agenda. All good. Now, the draft minutes were circulated in advance of the meeting. Are there any corrections or amendments required to those draft minutes from last year? No, very good. So we'll take those minutes as being approved, and I will sign them in due course. In terms of remembrances, I'm aware of the recent passing of Bob Adams, and on behalf of Cigre Australia, I would like to acknowledge the life and contribution of Bob Adams. Before retiring, Bob was the principal consultant for Electronet. He was an internationally recognised electrical engineer with 50 years' experience in high-voltage power systems engineering and operation. Bob held the position of convener of the Australian C4 panel on power system technical performance, as well as being the Australian member to the Cigre Study Committee C4 for 6 years. He co-authored several Cigre technical brochures and was an active member of numerous working groups across a range of fields, including electromagnetic compatibility, power quality, and substation design. Bob passed away sadly on the 22nd of October this year and will be missed by his many colleagues and friends in the Cigre community, both in Australia and overseas. Our condolences are extended to Bob's family and friends. I would like now to ask if any members here today are aware of anybody else that should be recognised at this point. Thank you. We're now going to move into the office bearer reports. There is time at the end of each presentation for a few questions. Anybody asking a question in Brisbane should first raise their hand in the usual manner, and they will be provided with, or you will be provided with a roving mic. You should state your name before asking the question, please. Members watching the AGM remotely can type a question, and we will be monitoring these as we go forward. So I'm going to start out by my own report here. So I'm going to cover broadly performance, governance and management, a little bit about our strategic plan for 24-27, the quality events valued by the industry that we held in the past year, and a little bit about people and how we're doing in that regard. So it was a very good year. We are definitely well placed to build upon our growth, financial stability and reputation. Strong financial position due to prudent financial management over several years and a successful Cairns Symposium. Excellent membership growth, so 18.5% year-on-year growth, which is substantial. We delivered also in roughly the past 12 months or so 3 major events: the Cairns Symposium, the Transformer and Reactor Workshop, and the Power Electronics and Power System Integration Seminar, as well as regular NGN webinars. We also carried out a review of our financial policies, including delegations and investment, and the remaining policies will be updated over the balance of this financial year. We've slightly adjusted our approach to investments, updated to be a little less conservative to achieve better returns. Several of these issues will be addressed in the upcoming presentations by Tara Lee and Peter, so you can get some more detail at that point. I'd like to highlight the high quality events we had. We just didn't have a number of events, but they were of extremely high quality. Cairns had over 1,377 delegates. That's extraordinary. At the early planning stages, we were thinking about 400 or 500 perhaps would be a success. 93.6% of the delegates rated the symposium very good to excellent. The Transformer and Reactor Workshop was also very well attended with 107 delegates, and 18% of the delegates rated the workshop very good to excellent. The Power Electronics and Power System Integration Seminar, which was a joint seminar among many committees, had 139 delegates, and 93% of the delegates rated the seminar very good to excellent. Every event was run at a surplus, and that helped us, of course, provide some diversification of revenue, as well as, of course, our member and panel fees. We have a new strategic plan that the board worked hard on, and that was released in July 2024, and it is aligned with the first 3 years of the Cigre Mothership 2030 plan. The areas of focus include growing our membership, advancing the energy transition, which we're right in the middle of here in Australia, and to attract and develop the workforce of the future, something that we're all struggling with in our individual roles. The strategic plan is supported by a business plan which will be updated prior to the start of each financial year, and which provides details on specific initiatives in the following 12 months. Our values were also updated in a consultative process that was very passionate and would work to follow over the next 12 months to better define their application through aligned behaviours. And we list them there, and they are, of course, impartiality, advancement, collaboration, diversity, equity and inclusion, and excellence. All things that we hold true to here in Cigre. We had a very collegiate and committed board that met 8 times in the past financial year. The Finance, Risk and Audit Committee met on 5 occasions, and I'd like especially to acknowledge our departing members, Alison Andrew and Stuart Bell, who have served with very much competence and glory, and it was a privilege being chair of that board this year. And I wish good luck to Alison and Stuart. We had a seamless transition of our executive officer position from Terry, who's, I'm delighted to say, is present here in the room today, between Terry and to Peter. So that was worked hard from both Terry, a lot of hard work from both Terry and Peter to make sure that it went well, and it did go well. We had a healthy attendance by members at the Paris session, and over 100 ANC members attended that session. Sadly, not myself. I was tied to the beautiful little island of Tasmania because of some storms and strike issues. But it was, by all accounts, an excellent representation at Paris. We remain dependent, of course, on the expertise and goodwill of our members, who graciously give their time, and I'd like to acknowledge that they support us, and we're indebted to your support. I'd like to particularly acknowledge the hard work and commitment of the study committee and Australian panel conveners. They really have taken a big role in the energy transition, and looking and sitting through the ATC, or part of the ATC presentations yesterday, you can just see how significant that contribution is. So thank you all very much. I'd like to hand over now to Tara Lee MacArthur, who's chair of our Finance, Risk and Audit Committee, and she's going to give the Treasurer's report. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Very good morning, everyone. My name is Tara Lee MacArthur, and I am Treasurer. So I wanted to spend the next few minutes to go over the Treasurer's report and financial summary of our accounts. I'll be keeping it very brief, but I'm very happy to report in my first year as Treasurer that it was a very successful year. So this chart shows basically the Cigre Australia financial trend over the last 10 plus years of our annual surplus and deficit. So Cigre Australia achieved a strong surplus for financial year 2024, principally driven by the success of Cairns, which I will discuss a little bit later. This surplus was $455,979, and that was against the budget of $245,440. So just a reminder here that we are a not-for-profit organisation, but we're certainly not a not-for-loss organisation. So it's really important that we try and balance the peaks and losses and maintain that balance. We really need a long-term approach. And you can see, I guess something to note here is you can see the deficits align with our Paris session and how we support our Australian members to attend those events. So I just want to spend some time talking about the Cairns Symposium. So the profit for the Cairns Symposium overall was $810,000. The overall profit retained by Cigre Australia was $43,000. And probably, I guess, maybe some of you don't know, the symposium is a conference that's co-organised by the host national committee, but also central office. So there's an agreement up front with Cigre Paris that it's split 50-50, meaning it's risk sharing and profit sharing, and each of us is exposed to either the upside or the downside. So the Paris component actually this time was less than 50%. Because of the symposium, we included the CIDR and CPAC events. So these are regular conferences for Cigre Australia. And so we were able to basically negotiate this up front with Paris to keep those profits from those events. So something also to note that this also included some salary and wages from previous years, because of accounting rules allows for the revenues and external expenses to be accrued, and salaries and wages paid must be expensed in the year that it's happened. So Sean did touch on this a little bit, but this year we had some changes to our investment strategy. So I'm just taking some time here to talk about the investment performance and also the future strategy. So traditionally, Cigre Australia has had a conservative approach, so with term deposits and our bond portfolio FIG, and this typically generated returns around or marginally in excess of CPI. So this year, however, the board did approve a new investment policy in July, allowing us to look at managed investments with exposure to other asset classes, such as equities and property trusts, as long as the overall investment portfolio was conservative or balanced, so in its risk and return profile. So the board and FRA did their research, and we sought proposals from a number of companies. But in the end, the board selected Perpetual as the provider of the new managed fund. And it is a growth fund with the investment horizon long term, so 10 years, with a target annual average return of 3.5 above CPI. So the Perpetual Fund was established in August, and we did this by using some of our maturing term deposits, so $200,000 from term deposits, and we liquidated 300,000 from our FIG portfolio, which gave us 500,000 in total. So just a bit of details about the perpetual fund there, which comprises of 40% index of international equities with an ESG profile, 30% of Australian equities, and the balance of other asset classes, including property, funds, and alternate assets. So just an overview of what that now looks like for Cigre Australia, and this is a snapshot from the end of last month. So we still have we now have the three types of investments, so the term deposits, FIG bond portfolio, perpetual managed fund, and we have the percentage allocation for each. So overall, we have a very diverse profile of investments, and we believe we have a conservative and balanced approach to our risk characteristics. Just a couple of notes there. This excludes the cash we have on hand to pay our bills when they're due, and the amounts held in term deposits vary with our cash flow and timing throughout the year. So what are we forecasting for the current and the next couple of years? So our 2025 budget and forecast, so we're going to continue to support the Australian panel and working group conveners where possible. We did hear last AGM and probably the year AGM before that Paris was going to be an expensive year, and we did see this because the Paris session was held between the Olympics and Paralympics. And I also just wanted to note that this budget, so this financial year 2025, we are supporting our study committee members or our Australian panel members to attend study committee meetings that actually fall in next half of 2025, meaning we'll be supporting them twice throughout the financial year. And this is hopefully offset, like Sean said, because we're going to start running more events for our members. So we saw the Pepsi conference or the Power Electronics and Power Systems Integration Seminar run last month, and I haven't got the final numbers, but we seem to get a nice profit from that event. The Transformer workshop made a comeback this year. We won't be doing that every year, so that's something that we will be changing. It will be every 2 years we'll run that event, and maybe something mini between. We're bringing back the annual member dinner. That's something we had last night if those had joined us. And we've got the Australian conference, which is the Adelaide conference. So this is something we're probably going to do every non-parish year for our Australian members. And it is not a symposium, so like I mentioned before, we don't have to share the profits with Paris. We'll continue working on our new website to get all our information out there into the industry. And we're looking at how we can better support our NGN and our Women in Energy initiatives in the next budget. So looking at the numbers, it will be a challenging year, but we're expected to see some year-on-year volatility. So next year, we're looking at a deficit of 109,000. But like I said before, we haven't got the numbers from the Pepsi conference yet, so hopefully it will look a little bit nicer next year. But yeah, as you can see, the equity over time will still be increasing. The 2025 membership fees, as a board, we deliberated about this, and we have a small increase to membership fees on all categories this year at 3.5%. This is below CPI, but also below what we have agreed with our members in previous years. So this also includes the Paris component, but yeah, there will be a small increase, and these are the numbers that will be reflected on those invoices later this year. So in conclusion, the board recognises the need to be financially responsible and our obligation to our members to safeguard and to spend the member funds wisely. We do take that really serious, and we aim to operate within the budget and forecast and be within an acceptable range. Administration costs will continue to be monitored and reduced where possible. For example, we had Paris handle all the Australian delegate registrations this year, which allowed Peter and Tracy to focus on local events and talk to our local members and respond to their inquiries. This year, the board developed the new investment strategy, and will be closely monitored delivering an investment strategy with a more diverse and appropriate risk profile for Cigre Australia. So invoices for membership will be issued late November, early December, with payment due at the end of the calendar year. I just wanted to say that over the next couple of years, it will be a challenge. But however, with the success of the CAN Symposium and our hope for the same for the Cigre Adelaide, we hope we're well placed to navigate those challenges and still provide value to our members. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara Lee. I'm just wondering, has anybody any questions either online or in the room, either for myself or indeed for Tara Lee? Terry, I see. I'll come over to you now.
We'll just wait for the microphone, Terry.
Hi, Terry Killen. Thanks for the presentation and congratulations on your first Treasurer presentation. Just to query, the 3.5%, is that net of fees, or will Cigre be paying Perpetual for an additional management fee on top of the investment?
Yeah, so you're referring to the
Managed fund.
The managed fund and the fees we're paying Perpetual. Yeah, so Peter might be able to help me out, but if I can recall it. Yeah, it's the membership, so what we pay in fees for Perpetual to manage those accounts is about $6,000 per year. We're still expecting the 3.5 on top of that.
Thank you, Terry. Any other questions? I believe we've 10 people online. Any questions from participants online? No. Okay, very good. Thank you all. And I'll now invite Peter up to give his CEO report.
Thank you, Chair, and delighted to be here this morning. So I was going to cover a few things that others haven't covered, so I'm the bits and pieces gap filler on things that don't fall into Angela's or Natasha's or the Chair's or Treasurer's presentation. I'm going to do a little bit deeper dive into a few parts of the strategic plan, but also talk a bit about how that's translating to the business plan for this year, provide a membership update and a little bit about where next. So as Sean mentioned, we did issue a new strategic plan the middle of this year. It's not a fundamental shift from previous years, but it's certainly a refinement. And I point to the bottom left side under growing our membership, some initiatives we're going to do, how we actually engage people more. So at the moment we do a lot of our engagement, the activating members through the panels, but ultimately there is a capacity limit for how many people can function effectively on a panel to bring expertise, but also for those panels to work well. So we're looking at a number of initiatives, and one of the first ones we want to try this year is the concept of an NGN-based working group taking on a challenge or an issue for that panel and working with the guidance for that panel to actually challenge a real issue in Australia relevant to the energy transition. So how do we actually do that? And the intent, if that's a model that would work, we can actually activate groups under a panel that can actually do work to support a panel and have people who would be engaged in that work that wouldn't otherwise be working for Cigre, and a potential opportunity for their professional development as well. In the middle slide, you can talk about cross-panel collaboration at the bottom. And this is an area where we see over time we're moving more towards an issues-based or a topic-based rather than the traditional silos that Cigre has established, the 16 study committees and panels. And many issues we see now span those areas of work. So how do we actually collaborate across Australian panels. Now, internationally, people know that at Cigre there are joint working groups. So the concept of collaboration is not foreign to Cigre internationally, but we haven't done as much cross-panel collaboration in Australia. So a very good example, the one we did recently with the B4, B5, C2 and C4. And I promised when I came CEO I wouldn't use those jargon, but for time today I'll shorthand it, to bring those 4 panels together to deliver the PEPSI, the Power Electronics and Power System Integration seminar in Sydney. And that was a very successful event, and Angela will touch on that a bit more. So that's the sort of thing we're looking at, is how do we actually think through the lens of the issue and bring in the relevant panels. And on the right-hand side, one thing I wanted to pull out was the concept of the workforce pipeline, because we've always said something that's important to grow that pipeline, both in competence and number. But how do we effectively make that work? So I'll cover that next on the next slide. But it's a little bit about working with others, perhaps in the way that Cigre traditionally collaborates, rather than thinking we can solve an issue on ourselves. And last thing I want to touch on the strategic plan is the board's challenged me to tap in and continue to tap into those sectors and parts of the industry that are around the periphery, not your traditional supplier, your traditional networks, but who are the other people we should be getting as members. So the examples of that are people who develop and deploy BESS, people who are developing and deploying wind farms. So we've signed up 3 or 4 people in that space recently, and only the last couple of weeks brought on Tilt Renewables, a large developer in Australia. And I've also received agreement for Squadron to join us as well. So we're now looking at how do we bring those people in who are central to the transition into the activity that we're doing. So some of the business plan initiatives for this year, and the first dot point there is really understanding those sectors that we need to focus on that are not traditional, and how we reach out to them, make a value proposition that makes sense to them, and attract them into the fold. The second one that Tara Lee mentioned earlier also is launching a new website, and work on that is substantially completed, using a far easier, simpler, more maintainable platform, and using templates from Cigre. We have not launched that because we were running registration systems and processes for events and AGMs and seminars through the back end of the existing website. So we have a window between this AGM and anything early next year to do the final work on that and to move to a new, simpler and easier to maintain website. The events I did mention, we've completed the PEPSI, the ATC presentation day. We have a plan for a CEO senior stakeholder roundtable next year, and the Adelaide conference, which will be the biggest event of 2025. Doing work around women and energy, and Tara Lee has been our rep there, but we'll be looking soon to hand that role across to a new person, and with their input to actually develop a new plan for engaging women in our industry. Looking at strategy to refine and grow NGN numbers, and Natasha will talk a little bit about some thinking of NGN in her presentation fairly shortly. And the last one I highlight is to work with partner organisations to build a case for advocacy. And the reason I say work with partner organisations, and this could be people like Australian Power Institute, Engineers Australia and the like, is that we don't have the capacity or the funds to solve the workforce pipeline issue. But with other organisations, we could build a case for the government to help fund initiatives to do it. And we think that if we can get them activated, understanding the issue and willing to commit to it, they have the capacity financially and strategically to actually make far, far bigger impacts than we can. So it's a matter of saying whether we can actually leverage Commonwealth government money rather than trying to do it on our own bat. Quick update about membership of Cigre internationally. We've now moved and at the middle of this year locked in as the third largest national committee, behind only USA and Brazil. And we're in the largest in the Asia-Oceania region, ahead of Japan, India and China and the like. One important outcome of that in the green box is that position provides us an automatic seat at the Cigre Steering Committee. And whilst decisions at Cigre are made by the Administrative Council, represents a far bigger group, in reality the strategy, the thinking, the issues that get put to the Administrative Council come through the work of the far smaller Steering Committee, which has got about 15 people on it. So this would be an opportunity for us to leverage our size to help push Cigre internationally in the direction that we think it needs to go. Our own growth rate, despite the number I was showing you, is very strong. So if you have a look, that's the graph for year to date this year. And as 15th November today, confirmed last night, current figures, we've got 391 individual members, honorees, fellows, ones and twos, and 134 collectives. So a very strong position. 53 students is the only caveat. We have had more students in the past, so we do need to reactivate an approach to not only getting students, but to maintaining them when they need to confirm that they are still currently students. The bottom graph shown in green is what's called an equivalent membership, which gives weighting to the various collectives and is used to determine the financial contribution to Cigre and the relative size of national committees. And that's the number that I showed in the previous graph had placed us third internationally. This is the trend line. We grew that 14% last financial year, and year to date we're up another 8.6% in the first 4 months of this year. So overall, very strong growth within the organisation. Just want to touch on briefly where next. So Cigre has made some changes to its statutes around the strategy of trying to retain students and individual two members. And I'll argue at Steerco that I think they can go further and go harder in this space. But the first one of those is that when students join the workforce, they'll be given complimentary membership, equivalent of an individual two for the first year. So they're not required to pay for the first year's membership. I think it's a good strategy. And secondly, the individual two, subject to the 35-year age limit, has always been capped at 2 years, and that will now be capped at 3 years. So it allows members to defer the shock of moving from a half-price membership to the full-price individual membership. As I mentioned, having joined the steering committee, the board is actually doing, at its next meeting, a discussion around international strategy. So we are open over the next 1 or 2 weeks. If you have ideas about where you think we might play and how we might be involved, I'm more than happy to hear from you. I'm sure I'll be speaking to Asif. And people who have got a strong view around this, because we have opportunity to put a position to Cigre over things we would like to change. But so if you have any ideas there, please come back to me in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And the last thing I really wanted to highlight and say yet again is Adelaide 2025. I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. It'll be our premier event. It's a suite of conferences that'll have general themes, NGN, WIE, and will incorporate both the next version of CPAC and the next version of CIDR. So Adelaide 2 to 4th of September. I look forward to seeing you there. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Peter. I think we should show our appreciation, first of all. A very comprehensive report. Thank you. Questions? Yes, Terry.
Thanks, Peter. Firstly, I think that should be 2025 on your last slide, not 2005. But
yes,
look
yes.
forward to the event.
Yes.
And I just have a couple of questions. One, I noticed the Corona Times that we used to publish hasn't been published, so does the board have any view on doing something similar in the future? And also I was just querying whether the board plans to continue to run the NGN Ambassador Program and the mentoring program that we'd established.
So in the communications, so one of the things that I have in my plan for the board due at the end of this year, calendar year, not financial year, is to come back with a review of all the comms we do, which is in the loop, the Corona Times, how we use social media, how it integrates with the comms from Cigre Paris, to look at how we best devise the necessary but not too many communications and get clarity for both members, new and existing, about the sort of comms they want. And I expect I'll also do some surveying to people about what they value in terms of the comms and the frequency and the like. So that's a body of work to be done over the next 6 weeks or so to figure out what we should do for 2025 onwards. In relation to NGN, I prefer that we actually defer that one because Natasha's going to talk about some of the thoughts around how to engage people in the NGN space and the mentoring and that sort of thing. So that will be covered, I think, partly in Natasha's talk, and perhaps what isn't covered you might refer as a supplementary question to her, if that's okay.
We have a question here from Asif.
Thanks, Peter. Great presentation. And I think over the last 2 years, we've improved on a lot of communication externally as the word Cigre goes out. I've been doing some Q&A in the wider industry, especially with Clean Energy Council and others like ENA, in relation to what they know from the word when they hear Cigre. So whilst we're doing a lot of good work in terms of the detail, when I ask the question Cigre, it doesn't really turn the light bulb on for those individuals that I've been asking throughout the last 2 years. So I've been doing this mini survey in my own little sphere. And I think I know the reason, and this is more, there's a question at the end, but more of an observation perhaps to share with the team here. I think the effect of Cigre is still, as I can observe, within the realms and the boundaries of the utilities and the people who know the real technical. And the fact that we nowadays, in the last 2 years, when the net zero transition has gone big time in Australia, everybody is talking about net zero, and you attend all these conferences, ENA and CEC, what you see there is very high-level details being discussed, obviously, that we expect, but there's a missed opportunity here. Cigre has enough high-level as well as detail all the way down to be able to impact the relevant and the respective individual work areas in ENA and CEC, etc. I feel that there is a missed opportunity here in terms of our wider Australian industry engagement. And I think I raised this question last year, 2023 as well, in our Sydney forum. I feel, and the question that I'm going to throw at you now at the end is, would there be an appetite, if I were to suggest to this forum, to go down the path of a campaign where we individually project the learnings, the Q&A of the how many 150, 200 years of experience in this room in limited targeted interviews that we project online via LinkedIn, via any other medium that you have, to increase the amount of exposure that Cigre has, so that when we go to the next forum and we say, do you know Cigre? They can say, yes, we know Cigre. So that's the question, basically.
Oh, thank you, Asif. That's a very long prelude for the question. So I'll take that in two parts: exposure to industry through conferences, and secondly, really good quality vignettes online. So on the first one, that's an area where I think we can be more active. So as an example, next week we have a booth at the EECon ESA event in Sydney, and I'm doing a slightly provocative closing address on the Wednesday. Provocative, I want to rattle a few cages. So that will be an opportunity to have our brand there for 2 days with a number of people in Sydney. The vignette is a fantastic idea, and I think what we have to do is to use social media better. So part of the communication strategy is not only communicating to members, it's communicating to the broader audience what Cigre can do. And I don't think we tap well into social media, because currently the social media manager in Cigre, I chastise him regularly, doesn't put enough time into that, and probably has not the level of skills required to do that sort of thing. But that's an area I think we can grow and improve.
I'd also comment that I think this has been a topic of much discussion at more than one board meeting about how we make sure that we build on 100 years of technical excellence, impartiality, and make sure that in this modern world we can influence appropriately people who, frankly, are sometimes making decisions that affect us all about our industry with a bare minimum of knowledge. But it's how you get invited into that, how you exercise that, how you still maintain the collective, and make sure that we maintain our impartialities. But it's certainly something that we've debated at the board, and we are empowering the CEO to get out and about. That may make some people uncomfortable. So I just put you on notice that it may make people uncomfortable, and I think we're all collegiate enough that if we are uncomfortable, we will have those conversations. But yes, we need to sally forth on this for sure. Any other questions for Peter?
Thank you.
Very good. I'd like to invite Angela Klepesh up for the ATC presentation. Thank you, Angela.
Okay, good morning. So my name's Angela Klepak. I'm on the board of Cigre, and my role is the Australian Technical Committee Chairperson. So for this morning's presentation, I'll just give an overview of the 2024 year in review. I'll go a little bit over the Transformer workshop, the Cigre Paris 24 session, the Pepsi event that was held in Sydney in October, and also the Australian Technical Presentation Day that we had yesterday. So to start with, the 2024 year in review. So firstly, I want to just acknowledge just the fantastic work our Australian panel conveners and members actually undertake. I've said many times, they do take a lot of time in their own space. So over weekends, late at night, to actually try and fit in the work, the important work that Cigre undertakes. They not only do that as part of being contributors, but they're also leaders. They're leaders in the industry, corralling other subject matter experts to try and get the best out of those individuals. And that comes with a lot of hard work. And so firstly, I'd just like to thank all those members and especially our Australian panel conveners. Again, we've had another successful year. We've managed to keep a high engagement of our NGN members. We try and include them as they are the next generation. We do look upon them as coming in and being the future as part of that leadership role that Cigre actually needs. They are involved in all our panels, and we try and include them wherever we can to help and assist. And they really do have a lot of energy and are very ambitious, so it's really fantastic always to have them involved. So and we've heard probably a couple of times this morning as part of the messaging, just with regard to some of the work that we're really looking at wanting to try and do is solve some of the issues and challenges that are out there in the industry. So we're really actively looking at wanting to run workshops, run seminars, try and get those subject matter experts together in a room to be able to discuss and resolve some of those problems. So this year, we have held some local events. We've had the Transformer workshop. We've had the Power Electronics and Power System Integration seminar, which was held in October. And we had the ATC Presentation Day. And we've had also lots of Australian panel meetings held throughout the year. And in addition, we've also had the attendance at the Paris 24 session, which really gives us the reach back into the global international perspective. So just a little bit about the Transformer Workshop. It was a 3-day event. It was held in Sydney. We had over 110 delegates with 15 speakers. With these workshops and seminars that we hold, it's really important that we do get that industry buy-in. So I'd like to just acknowledge and thank our hosts, Ausgrid. We had sponsors from Omicron, Reinhausen, Wilson Transformers and Moleculus. And we also had the technical tour being taken on by Tyree Transformers. So without the industry being able to help and support us, these events would still run, but not as well as they have. So again, thank you for our hosts, sponsors and technical tour supporters. In addition, just also like to acknowledge all our organising committee. And again, these are people who sit within our Cigre community as part of our conveners and members who actually help and assist to run these workshops and seminars. So for the Transformer Workshop, Matthew Gibson, Tara Lee MacArthur, and there were a number of others also there. So thank you again. So with the Transformer Workshop, key themes were dissolved gas analysis, corrosive sulphur, new materials and thermal performance, and efficiency and sustainability. And again, I'm not going to go through all those details there, but we did have a lot of subject matter experts in the room, being able to go through and discuss, where utilities, where organisations are with regard to, some of these issues and how they're actually trying to overcome some of these challenges. At the Transformer Workshop, we also had the opportunity to run tutorials, and tutorials are the outcome of a working group. So working groups are where we actually identify that there are issues and challenges in the industry, and we actually get subject matter experts, not just locally but internationally, to actually work on trying to put together a technical brochure. And these technical brochures can take up to 2 to 3 years. So we did have the pleasure of actually having 2 tutorials at the Transformer Workshop. As listed. The first one there is the working group 8258, which is site installation and pre-commissioning of transformers and shunt reactors. And that technical brochure will be available early next year, 25, so do keep an eye out for it. The next one there was the working group A262, which is the use of transformer reliability statistics to make quantitative assessments of operation risk. A bit of a mouthful, but very important. But that technical brochure is now out on the Cigre website, so keep an eye out for them and download them. Again, probably just wanted to just highlight, and probably more the photos here, just to show you the interest that we have from a Cigre community perspective and the amount of people that were actually present at this event. So it was really great to see so many in attendance. It's obviously something that's very important in the industry as we move forward. And it's great that we've been able to actually hold an event and get people together to be able to discuss and workshop through lots of different issues. Okay, I'll jump into the Cigre Paris session. Cigre Paris session this year was held from the 25th to the 30th of August in Paris, France. I won't go through all the details here, other than we have heard that the attendance and participation records were broken on many different areas at this Paris Cigre event. It is a face-to-face event. It is held every 2 years. This year it attracted over 11,000 registrations and participants from over 100 countries. And I guess probably just drawing also to your attention that there were over 1,100 technical papers that were presented, and this is up 300 papers from 2022. From an Australian perspective, we had 14 of our 16 Australian panel conveners in attendance. We had 2 of our study committee chairmen also in attendance, so Alex Cruikshank and Victor Tan. And we've also heard, we've had over 100 Australian registrations and members attending the actual Paris session. We had 19 Australian papers that were actually accepted and presented at the session, with over 40 individual contributions across the 16 panel areas at the group meetings. So just a couple of photos there. We did have a tutorial that was delivered by Asif Bankor on who is our transmission lines convener on the risk management of overhead line networks. We also had strong participation at the Large Disturbance Workshop, and this is a very popular workshop that actually occurs at the Cigre Paris session, where we had the opening and the first session chaired by Alex Cruikshank, and also our second session presentation from Australia on the impacts of high penetration of distributed energy resources in South Australia, which was delivered by Brad Harrison from Electronet and Rayner Court. And of course, you know, we had the many NGN involvement and Women in Energy. The other event that we held this year was also what we've heard a number of times being called the Pepsi event, but the Power System Harmonics and Power System Integration Seminar. It was held in Sydney. It was a 2-day event, and the main theme was about exploring the issues and challenges associated with high penetration of power electronic interface devices on the power system. We did have some keynote speakers from the industry with Mr. Bernard Norton, Ms. Maren York, Mr. Damien Sanford, and I think I definitely attended that event. And I think for me, what was really important and what I really observed was that it was a highly technical seminar, but the level of engagement with the subject matter experts, the number of questions that were asked throughout the event, and you know the networking that occurred outside during the breaks, just goes to show that you know these events are really important, and it's really important that we hold them so that industry experts can come along and be able to share on the issues and challenges that they are all experiencing. Registrations and presentations, so we had over 130 registered, we had 38 presentations, probably again just really highlighting just the diversity from the industry representatives, and there's a listing through there. And probably the last one there was just really highlighting that we had 5 presentations from academia or from the university, so it's really great to see that universities are being engaged at that level to be able to help and assist in solving some of these issues in the industry. So I'd just like to thank the organising committee, as listed on the screen there, and just move on just now quickly onto the ATC Technical Presentation Day. So the aim of that day is really very much about promoting the work that we actually do and creating that visibility of what our Australian panel conveners do, and more importantly, how do we actually get individuals out in the industry involved in the work that is so important that Cigre undertakes, and trying to resolve some of the issues and challenges. So, as always,
ATC annual technical reports will be made available.
We might just skip past that. All right. So just wanted to just highlight that every year we do produce the annual technical reports, and the Australian panel conveners have been busy producing all the reports. I am in the middle of actually reviewing, collating them, and we are anticipating of publishing that annual report by the end of November. Just kept that slide deck in there, and it's just all our contact details for all our Australian panel conveners. So if anybody wants to actually reach out to Australian panel conveners, they're listed there. They've got their email addresses. They're more than happy for you guys to reach out to them and be in contact with them and work out of ways of how you can participate. So just ways of participation, again, just simply just becoming a Cigre member. That's probably the simplest and easiest way. It gives you access into Cigre straight away. On the previous slide, provide you the Australian panel conveners email addresses. Contact them. They can most certainly talk you through how you can actually become a member. NGN, if you're under the age of 33 years old, you can definitely become an NGN member, but probably even more simply, just have a look on the Cigre Australia Events website, even the Cigre International website. There are lots of events that are held locally and internationally. You can actually attend, or you can even write papers and actually come along and present. The only thing that I'll highlight on this one here, on this slide here, is that we often talk about Cigre working groups, and this really is the engine room of Cigre. I have left a link on that slide deck, and that link actually takes you through to all the active working groups that actually Cigre has currently. So currently we've got about 260 active working groups, all at different stages of delivery. Working groups are there to produce reports and technical brochures, and they usually take up to 2 to 3 years before those brochures are developed. So for 2024, we've got 30 new working groups that have been established, and there is a call for experts. So please get onto those links, have a look at those terms of references for those working groups that have been established, and there are opportunities there to apply and participate and connect with other subject matter experts in trying to resolve some of the issues and challenges that we have. Another useful document there, and again there's a link there, is just an outline of all the scope of work of activities that Cigre, Australia and International do. And I know that sometimes it feels like it's really quite complex, but it's a really great document and simplifies things very simply, and gives a really great overview. Other Cigre resources, we've got the Green Books, we've got Electra, we've got the In the Loop, so keep a look out for some of these extra resources. And finally, I'd just like to thank all our members and our Australian panel conveners for another successful year. All our volunteers, I know there are many of you who come along and volunteer and help out with some of the presentations and workshops that we've held this year, so thank you very much. And in particular, I'd like to thank our study committee chairs, Alex Cruikshank and Victor Tan. They do actually bring a lot of that international expertise and help to share and, drive the Cigre Australia initiatives also forward. And finally, just like to thank the Cigre Australian Board for all their support in keeping us all active and supportive. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Angela. I should note as well that all of the presentation slides will be put up on the web, so if you do want to click through on any of those links, they'll be up there in the next while and stay up for a few days or so at least, so that people can avail of the material. Have we any questions for Angela? Okay, all right, very good. And we will now move on to the NGN report, and I'd like to invite Natasha Da Silva to give us that report.
Talk about a hard act to follow. So my name is Natasha Da Silva. I am one of the NGN co-chairs. My counterpart Adrian unfortunately couldn't be here today, and we have him to thank for the slides, so if there's any typos, send that to him. So firstly, just want to say a great thank you to all of our committee members that participated and supported all the activities that the NGN do this year, with particular thanks to our outgoing committee members Stephanie Phillips, Sam Morali and Mark Matthews, and also to our incoming panel committee members, with a special mention to Phil Coughlin, who's coming back into the fold as our B2 panel liaison, and then we're also welcoming some new names in Reagan Skirman and Aviza Augustina, and Sam Cox. So, in terms of the year that was, firstly we had continual and steady membership growth. Not where we wanted it to be, but we've done a lot to work through that. This year we spun up a subcommittee focused on that, led by Pallavi Singh and supported by Nathan Crooks and Owen Gibson. So they've been working on some marketing material ready for the next year, to particularly on that student engagement topic that was such a hot button earlier. There is a lot of focus on that from the NGN to engage with those students and bring them on board. Then we also did the Paris session, but I will defer that to a little bit later. But we also have continue to pursue better engagement and involve the broader NGN membership. And so we're doing some work, we've done some work this year to scope up a serviceship program, as well as doing a digital refresh. And both of those are going to go into next year as well. We've also done a revision of the mentoring program. So we looked at how we'd delivered that in previous years, and thought we could change things up a little bit, do something a little bit different to what everyone else is doing in the industry, and fill a niche that maybe others haven't. And then we've also continued to facilitate our technical webinars with 6 webinars delivered this year. which is pretty good. Now, in terms of deep diving into those webinars, we've got three main streams on our webinars. We've got the technical essentials, the technical deep dives, and the NGN updates. Both the technical essentials and the technical deep dives are, what they say on the can. Your technical essentials are your foundational, this is what a power system is, this is how for, so all our really early career people, and then the technical deep dives are for those more experienced people. And with all of these webinars, we do welcome the broader Cigre community to come along. Just because they're hosted by the NGN doesn't mean that excludes everyone else. So if you're interested, please come onto our distribution list and we can organise that. And the last one is about the NGN update, so similar to what we're doing today, just on that organisational piece of how the NGN is operating and what we're doing in the working groups and the like. In terms of some of our local events, we've had networking events in Melbourne and Brisbane, and also special thanks to Ed Wilson for allowing us to do a site tour of the Wilson Transformer factory. Then also onto our attendance of the Paris session. So we had the NGN forum that was hosted by the NGN Australia, and with special thanks to the committee from NGN Australia that helped host that, which was Adrian Lloyd, Maddie Benet, Phil Coughlin, and Wei Jian Chan. Then we also had 6 NGN members that were presenting at various forums, and those people were Wei Jian Chan, Inez Zhang, Stephanie Phillips, Adrian Lloyd, Maddie Benet, and Tara Lee MacArthur. So special mentions to all of those people, and thanks so much for getting so involved and flying that NGN flag. Now looking ahead to 2025, we're continuing to put a ambitious target for our membership growth, which we believe we can achieve with owing to the subcommittee that we've wound up to address that issue. Then we're also looking at the MERA Panel Observer Program, where we're looking at organising up to 5 NGN members to each panel, in addition to that panel liaison role that supports our committee. As from yesterday and the ATC day, there was a lot of conveners that were asking for more NGN involvement in their panels, and we are delivering. So it's good to know that we're hitting the mark in what's needed. Then we've also got the Next Gen Professional Development Program. So this is going to take the place of the mentoring program, and we're working through organising a committee to address that and spin that up properly. Then continuing on, we're going to continue to facilitate the technical webinars. So we did 6 this year, aiming to stretch that to 8 next year with possibly 10. We're also aiming to continue organising those networking events for the NGN members with a target of 4 events in the next financial year, in the next calendar year, with a stretch to 6. Then we're also going to have sort of that increasing engagement with activity from the international NGN chapters. So one of the big things out of our NGN attendees to Paris was the want to and the recognition that we could engage better with our other international colleagues from the NGN space. So there is definitely an appetite to do that a lot better. Then we're also doing a refresh of the NGN digital platforms, both the KMS as well as feeding into that new website that Peter and Tara Lee touched on earlier. So we're, a big part of that is, at the moment when you register for the NGN, a key barrier is around KMS registration, which is not really delivering for some of our NGN members in terms of what they're looking for in terms of content. So we're doing a refresh on the structure of that and making sure that the content is actually going to be relevant, as well as trying to remove that KMS barrier of, at the moment, it's I think a lot of people have told us it's very difficult to organise the link within the 72 hours and everything else that's required for that KMS registration. And lastly, we're also going to review and update the NGN Australia Charter. That it could do with a good going over and refresh. So that's us. And how did I do on time?
Thank you. Very good, Natasha. Any questions for Natasha and generally on the NGN?
Did I answer your question earlier, Terry?
There's only a comment if they asked me. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Natasha. Again, I wasn't going to comment, but seeing you mention my name. So that ambassador program that we had started was sort of growing, was reasonably successful. I assume that also will be rolled into the next gen work that you're doing?
Yeah. So that's going to come in under that development plan, the next gen stuff.
Yeah, because that's really, when we ran it, it was quite useful in supporting the NGN with materials and information. The point Peter was making earlier about getting the info of Cigre out to the broader industry, and then also running some webinars and meetings online to other industry contacts as well that they had.
Yeah. So we're looking at all of that with the next gen stuff. So that'll all be coming in together to be a bit more streamlined across everything.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, very good. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you.
We're now going to declare the results of the election of directors, and I'm going to pass over to the CEO, who is the returning officer for the elections. So this is
thank you,
point
Chair.
where the meeting reaches a crescendo, Peter, I think.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to declare the successful candidates for election to the board as Ms Jackie Bridge from Powerlink Queensland and Mr John Clark from Transpower New Zealand.
And indeed, congratulations to the successful candidates. And I'd like to thank also the unsuccessful candidates. It's a very healthy sign to have so many people keen to take up leadership positions in the organisations. That's wonderful. I'd like also now just to spend a moment talking about the Cigre Australia Awards. There were a number of awards bestowed this year as a function of the Paris Cycle, and I would like to acknowledge the following people for their service to Cigre and indeed Cigre Australia. For the receipt of the award of Honorary Member, Alex Cruikshank. Congratulations, Alex. For the receipt of the Women in Energy Award, Taralee McCarter. Thank you so much. For the NGN Significant Achievement Award, Phil Coughlin. Thank you, Phil. And then various distinguished members who we have been intermittently knocking off with presentations of certificates. David Bones, Gary Brennan, Ray Brown, Don Geddy, Andrew Halley, very own Andrew Halley, Angela, of course, congratulations, and Sarat Parara. So please, it's wonderful to see us recognised through the hard work of our members as an organisation. And Technical Council Awards also to Babak Badrisha and Greg Thorpe and Ray Brown. So Ray on the double there, so that's very good. And so I'd like to congratulate all of those in the usual manner, so thank you. Now, seeing as there was no other business identified, or raised from the floor. I'm now going to close the meeting slightly ahead of schedule at 12:40. Thank you all for your attendance, both in person here and online, and we'll just finalise the AGM now for 2024. Thank you.